looked at the debates and I saw, you know, Al Sharpton and Carol Moseley Braun and you and Dennis Kucinich, I thought it was a lot more witty and engaging than I think the possible snooze we're going to face in the presidential party debate.
The bottom line is I agree with the premise that the debates ought to include everybody. The question is, what kind of a threshold do you use? Because sometimes there are 20 people on the ballot, and obviously it's not practical to have a 20-person forum up on the stage, or even a 9-person forum.
Well, people want to get involved in opening the debates, as John Anderson suggested. And I believe, by the way, proportional representation is critical to instant runoff voting working better. Log into opendebates.org, because the threshold's a reasonable one. If a majority of the American people, as they expressed in 2000, in poll after poll, want a candidate on the debates, that ought to be enough. And a majority of the American people wanted me and Buchanan on the debates in 2000. It isn't because they just viewed the debates as a cure for insomnia. I think they wanted a broader agenda. They wanted more exciting issues. They wanted to get rid of all the taboos that put marbles in the mouths of the two major presidential candidates, hemming and hawing. So 5% in the polls is one criteria. A majority want you on is another, and that ought to be good. What are they afraid of? I mean, what, no, the audience for the debates are going down every 4 years. They were down to 38 million last time, in contrast to 92 million when Perot was on the debates. There's no other way to reach tens of millions of Americans other than go through the gateway dominated by the two parties. I mean, what other democracy allows that? You can campaign all over the country for the largest arenas, like the biggest arenas that we filled in the year 2000. We only reached 2% of the people we could have reached on just one debate. What is the reason for all this sanctioning, all this restriction? All this politics of fear from new ideas and fresh vistas and a record of 40 years of accomplishment.
Let's go on. Ralph Nader has accused the Democratic Party of waging a battle to prevent him from getting on the ballot in Arizona, Texas, Illinois, Florida, Michigan. Governor Dean, is the Democratic Party trying to prevent third parties and independents from getting on the ballot?
Not to my knowledge. I refuse to participate in anything like that because I don't appreciate that. Some of my former staff members are doing that, and I told them I wasn't going to have anything to do with them because they're the same people who same people running that group who tried to knock me out of the caucus in Iowa.
David Jones.
That's right. Not my favorite person. You all know him well, right? Jeannie knows him very well. Here's the problem with what's going on. I do believe that, Ralph, that your attempt to get on the ballots is fatally flawed. I don't believe, if you really did go out and get all those signatures in Arizona, it would be great, but the truth is a lot of them were illegal. And it's not picking on you. This happens to every candidate. If you pay somebody to go get signatures, they generally do a much lousier job than if you use volunteers. It is true that the Oregon Family Council, which is a virulently anti-gay right-wing group, called up all their folks and tried to get them to go to the Oregon Convention to sign your petition. I don't think that's the way to change the party. I agree with much of what you say, but the way to change the country is not to do it with any means to the end. The way to change the country is not to get in bed with right-wing anti-gay groups to get you on the ballot. That can't work. It can't work. The problem with the democracy is that the two major parties have tried to use any means to an end. I think there's a big difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. I'll grant you that there's significant corporate influence that we don't like, and I campaigned against in the primary. I'm not running for president right now, not just because I lost in Iowa, but because I made the calculation that if I did, I would take away votes that otherwise would go to John Kerry, and the result was going to be the re-election of George Bush. That is a national emergency, and we cannot have it.
Well, I think just what you said about that group was a legitimate smear. You know what a legitimate smear is, Howard? It's a smear premeditated and knowing. We don't even know this group. Don't try to tar us with this. There have been groups that have supported your campaign you wouldn't want to have breakfast with even if you were starving.
Then just renounce them. That's all I ask.
Well, fine. I renounce them. You got anyone else to renounce? Do you renounce Pfizer and Chevron and other companies who were criminally convicted of crimes by the federal government, giving millions of dollars in the year 2000 to the Democrat Party, and they did not return the money? That's a matter of record.
Damn right I renounced it. That's exactly why I ran for president. I don't want that stuff anymore. And we're going to have real campaign financing with public financing of campaigns in this country, but it's not going to happen under George Bush's
presidency.
president.
So you'll urge John Kerry to return all money coming from corporate executives who presided over corporations who were either who pleaded guilty or were convicted of antitrust, environmental, labor, and other crimes.
I will urge him to do that if you will give back the 10% of your $1,000 contributions that came from people who, like Richard Egan, the ambassador to Ireland appointed by George Bush.
I wasn't aware that he was a corporate criminal. He's an American citizen who is a Republican, just happens to believe in civil liberties, maybe. I don't even know the man.
Well,
but,
let's go on.
Republicans are human beings too.
Let's go on.
Right-wingers may not be.
Let's go on to another question here on Justice Talking, where we're talking with Ralph Nader and Howard Dean, and we're debating third parties and the 2004 election. Let's take another question from our audience.
Hi, my name is Matt Keller from Washington, D.C., and I am a big fan of third-party politics. I think it's something that we need to integrate into our federal system. But I was fortunate enough to spend a lot of time living over in Germany, where they have a very strong Green Party. And I'm sort of questioning the tactics in which Mr. Nader is taking on trying to establish that party as a third party, the Green Party, independent party. The Green Party in Germany is able to establish itself more at the local and state level, where they were able to become politicians in those areas. And they slowly gain confidence and familiarity by the people, able to get into the... I cut off here? And do you think that it might be more effective to take a similar route, which in turn would add to the long-term future stability and popularity of the Green Party, instead of running for a presidency in which you really have no chance to win?
Well, I don't really see the contrast here. It would be good to have proportional representation. In West Germany, or in Germany now, when the Greens got over 5% of the vote, they got over 5% of the parliament. If they get 10%, they get 10% of the parliament. In this country, you can get 49% of the vote and you get nothing. So a lot of people's votes don't mean anything at all, assuming they even vote. So it is important to keep in mind that our divided power, separation of powers system sometimes has a good asset in stopping things, but it's much more sluggish in getting new frontiers reached, new things done. That's one reason why in Western Europe they came in after World War II with universal health care, a living wage, good benefits, 4 to 6 weeks paid vacation, good public transit. We could have had all this here had we had a parliamentary system, actually. But now with the filibuster and the obstruction, it's very hard. It's like they've made our society one that's stuck in traffic. We have far more problems in this country we would deserve, far more solutions on the shelf than we apply. Because of this kind of gridlock, this winner-take-all system.
We have another question here from our audience. Let's hear it.
Hi, I'm Linda Shade from Tacoma Park, Maryland, and I wanted to know why Mr. Nader and Mr. Dean think that Kerry is running to the right of President Bush on the occupation in Iraq, and what should the peace movement's response be?
Excellent question. The Nader-Cameo ticket is the only avowedly and determined anti-war candidacy. We want to have a responsible six-month withdrawal of the U.S. military and corporate occupation, internationally supervised elections, so that the Iraqi people don't feel that they're facing a permanent military occupation, a control of their oil resources, and a puppet government. If they feel that, the majority of the Iraqis are going to support the insurgency. They're not going to distance themselves, the insurgency. And John Kerry voted for the war, as Howard Dean reminded us many times during the primary days. George W. Bush launched our country into a war in Iraq based on a platform of fabrications, deceptions, and lies, and did it in an unconstitutional manner. So that's one reason why we need more distinctions in the candidates. We need more voices, and we need more choices. Furthermore, it looks like John Kerry's running to the right of George W. Bush on the Israeli-Palestine issue. Why, if the U.S. government is really interested in peace between the Israelis and Palestinians, why doesn't it support the broad and deep Palestinian and Israeli peace movement, especially the Israeli peace movement that's put 120,000 people in a protest demonstration in Tel Aviv the other day and represents former legislators, existing legislators, former ministers of justice, former generals, former combat
Okay, I'm
officers
going to have
have
to break in
refused
here
to
and
fight in the West Bank.